Hello everyone, Tina here. I hope your day is going well. Thank you so much for joining me. Today I get to share with you a couple of baby cards using some of the brand new release items over at the Pretty Pink Posh shop. I know I've shared another project using the tulips that's brand new over the shop, but today we're going to make a couple of baby cards. The owner, actually Paulina of Pretty Pink Posh, just had a baby, and so I thought these were super cute and nice to have in your stash for those new arrivals. Okay, we're going to jump in and do some stamping. We're going to start off. There is this stamp set here is a smaller one, and it is called, it's so sweet, it's called Little One. And there's a rattle and a little lamb, and there's some stars that have the outline, and then the stars that you can line up and fill in the outline. But if we're just going to use the little lamb, I thought she was so sweet. So I just stamped her with Memento ink on some alcohol marker friendly paper. It's actually Nina Classic Crest Solar White. And she's so easy to color in. I'm just going to use 4 markers to color in her face and her hands and feet. I'm going to use a couple of pinks. And then for her fuzzy fur, we're going to use some warm grays. I'm going to use the W0 and the W2. But easy peasy. We're going to rosy up her cheeks with that darker pink color. And she is so good to go. Love these little lambs. Her little bow that is around her neck, we're going to color in with some yellows. I thought yellows are nice and neutral. I'm using a Y13 and a Y18. We're going to take the coordinating die and die cut her out. I'm just going to tape it down first. And then since we have a lot of leftover room on our cardstock, I thought we would do a little ink blending for our sentiment. I'm going to be using one of the brand new sentiment dies over in the shop. This is called the Welcome Little One Script Sentiment Die. And I wanted to add a little bit of color, kind of coordinating it with our little lamb. So I brought in some Distress Oxide ink, and we're blending in some picked raspberry on the top, and then we're going to add some squeezed lemonade on the bottom. When you add both of these together and they overlap, it creates a real pretty orangey corally color. I don't know if I mentioned it, but the corally color is probably my favorite color. I love that color, and so I love when these two colors overlap. Now this sentiment die will cut out the words welcome, little, and one, and I just wanted the little one, and so you'll see I'm not centering it on my panel. The welcome will be chopped off, but that's okay. So everything's die cut, that's ready to go, and now we're going to create our background. I have a panel that measures 4 inches by 5 1/4, and then I'm bringing in a die from my stash. This one here is called the Small Circle Burst die. It's neat because it creates a circle window in your panel, but then it has little circle details that kind of spread out from the main window. I thought that'd be a pretty accent piece. The Eyelet border die set that I'm using now is part of the Pretty Pink Posh brand new release. I'm using one of those, and we're going to basically trim down maybe a 1-inch section from the very bottom of this panel too. This way we can add some color behind it, but we also have that dainty eyelet border. So that's cut out, and then I created another panel that was the same size using the same stitched rectangle die. Again, it measures 4 inches by 5 1/4. Now behind my window I wanted some color, so we're going to use the same colors that we used for the sentiment. I'm using picked raspberry here off to the left, and then to the right we're going to bring in squeezed lemonade, and again we're going to overlap them just slightly. This way we have that corally color in the middle, and I think that's going to look so pretty. Now we have that bottom area too. We're going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to add the picked raspberry more towards the left, and then more of the squeezed lemonade to the right. Just kind of looks like a full sheet of colored cardstock behind here. Okay, once this is done, we're going to flip over our window panel, and we're going to add foam adhesive behind it. We're going to add a little dimension by popping this up, and then we'll just remove the release paper off of our foam tape and then add that to our panel. I think the easiest way is to flip our panel upside down and then add it. That way you could use the base of your craft mat, kind of get it lined up straight. And that's our background. Okay, we're going to go ahead and add foam squares behind our little lamb. I'm going to add 2 to make it 1 level higher than our background, because our lamb's going to fit right in that window there. And then we have our little one. I'm going to, before we go, I thought there's a sentiment in the stamp set that says "you are cherished," and I thought that would be a perfect ground for our little lamb to sit on. So I'm going to pick that up with my block. We're going to stamp that on some black cardstock, and then we're going to heat emboss. So I'm going to treat it with my anti-static powder tool, and then we're going to ink up our sentiment with Versamark ink. Stamp that in the bottom corner. I like doing this in the bottom corner because it kind of helps me line up, and I can get a straighter sentiment when I use my scissors to block it off. I added white embossing powder, and then we're going to go ahead and melt that embossing powder with our heat gun. Once that's melted, we're going to go ahead and use our scissors and trim it off. Again, we're just going to block it off. This is always tricky for me. It seems like it'd be so easy, but for some reason, cutting a complete rectangle or trimming it is difficult for me. I always get it crooked. So I have to keep going back until I'm happy with the outcome. Thank goodness they have dies for this, right? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and add foam tape behind our sentiment here. And then this is going to go directly under our little lamb. Just making sure it's centered. And then I'm going to add glue behind our sentiment, says little one, which I just dotted. And then using my tweezers, it's going to help me position it on the bottom of my panel. I'm not pressing down just yet. I'm going to first place it, and then I'll press down. I think that looks adorable. We're going to flip this panel over, and I'm going to use my tape runner, and we're going to adhere this to a standard A2 size card base. This is a top folding card base here. We'll add that, and I think it looks precious. For bells and whistles, we're just going to add some of the gems. These gems are so nice. They're pretty colors too. There's buttercream, which is the yellowish color, and then there's pink blush, which is the pink, and they're also from Pretty Pink Posh. I'm going to add just a few, and then that finishes off baby card number 1. Now for baby card number 2, we are going to use the same colors, and you guys, if you wanted to switch it up and make a boy card, you very well, I think the layouts could be the same. I would just switch it over the picked raspberry for maybe broken china. That way you would have a blue, a green, and a yellow, and it would create the same effect. And I think the card layout is kind of universal. Okay, I'm bringing in my Misty for this. I'm going to stamp the sentiment that says baby. Now this spells out the word baby, but it has little baby details inside the letters. There's bottles, bibs, rattles, blocks. There's safety pins, hearts, and stars. They all fill in that baby letters. I thought that was so neat. So we're going to do a little bit more heat embossing. I'm treating my image with my Versamark ink. We're going to stamp it a couple times on some Nina 80-pound cardstock. This Nina 80 pound is easy to blend with. That and Bristol Smooth. And so that's why I'm using this cardstock. Once my white embossing powder that I added was melted, we're going to do some more blending. Again, we're going to use picked raspberry. These are Distress Oxide inks. And I'm going to add a little bit to the top here. And then we're going to do a little blending on the bottom with Squeeze Lemonade. We're making sure that we overlap both of these colors. That way we can get that coral in the middle. And these are pretty good sized letters. You can see this panel that I'm working on is a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch panel. And you can see the size of it. So it'll be perfect for a landscape or portrait style card. Today's card, second card, we're going to make a landscape style card. I'm just going to use my towel and buff away the ink off of my embossed area. That way it's nice and bright and white again. And I love the way that looks. Super neat. I think it'd be real fun too if we were to color in each one of those images inside the letters. There is a coordinating die set, so I'm going to separate the letter the die that says baby, and I'm going to die cut this out in my panel. And then after we have it die cut, I'm going to keep the negative piece because we're going to use that too. Our baby's die cut out, and then I'm going to take a stitched rectangle die and then cut out a stitch detail along my panel, and it's going to basically give me a panel that's 4 inches by 5 1/4. I'm just going to make sure it's kind of centered. We'll tape it down and then run this through. So we're going to use the positive and the negative of the baby. I'm going to use another one of the Eyelet border dies. I'm going to use the largest one that has a swoosh, or I don't know how you would say that, a scallop maybe, but I just love the swoop of this. So this is going to fit perfectly landscape on our panel. I'm just lining it up to make sure each sides are even, and then we'll tape it down and run that through the die cut machine as well. And that is going to create our nice little background. You could pop this up if you wanted to, but I decided just to go ahead and use my tape runner and adhere this directly to my card base. My card base is a standard side folding card base again. We'll tape that down. You can see it leaves a little bit of a border, and I think that looks great. I'm going to go ahead and flip over our baby letters and add foam adhesive. So these are going to be popped up for the dimension that I like. Now when I add them over the existing baby letters, I'm offsetting it so that way it's peeking out, and it's really going to make that baby stand out on my card. Okay, I thought we needed a few little baby accents. In the stamp set, there's a bib, and there's diaper pins, there's bottles, there is blocks, and there's also this cute little onesie. So I'm going to stamp that twice, and then I'm going to take the little outline of a heart that's in the stamp set, and we're going to stamp a little heart inside each one of these little onesies, just using the same ink. Now to save a little bit of time, I colored in my onesies. I used my pinks and yellow Copic markers. I tried to find colors that coordinated with my oxide inks, and then I just created one pink with a yellow heart and then one yellow onesie with a pink heart. I went ahead and used the coordinating dies and cut them out so they're ready to go. Now you can see I also stamped the sentiment that said "It's a girl." I stamped it on black cardstock and heat embossed it with white embossing powder. And then we're going to add our onesies with foam adhesive, and I'm going to scoot them over just a little bit closer to the Y, and then I popped up my "It's a girl" sentiment, and we're going to tuck that underneath that yellow onesie there, just below the B. For finishing touches, I'm going to add some of the buttercream jewels, just 3 of them in that corner, and then I think that looks great. For bells and whistles for both of the cards, I'm going to bring in some Nouveau Morning Dewdrops. This is like a glossy accents, and I thought we would add a little bit of glossiness to the fur on our little lamb, and the feet too. We'll just fill that in. When it dries clear, so it'll be nice and shiny. And I'm also going to fill in the little hearts in the onesies too, so they're nice and shiny. I have a couple little baby cards ready to go. We don't have anybody expecting babies in our family, but nice to have on hand, and they're super fun to create. Thank you so much for joining me, guys. I wish you a lovely day, and we will see you again real soon. Bye-bye.